The massive Galactic Council chamber was packed with alien representatives from across the galaxy. Hundreds of different species filled the curved seats that spiraled up toward the domed ceiling. The air hummed with dozens of languages being translated through universal devices. But despite all this noise and activity, you could feel the tension hanging heavy in the room. Ambassador Mina Kim sat alone in a small section marked for probationary species. This was where they put representatives from planets that weren't considered full members yet. The human woman looked calm on the outside, but inside her heart was racing. She had been Earth's voice in galactic politics for 3 years now, and she could sense that today was different. Today felt dangerous. The Zephyrian Chancellor stood at the center podium, his tall insect-like body gleaming under the bright lights. His 4 compound eyes swept across the chamber as his mandibles clicked together in what humans had learned was their version of a smile. But this wasn't a friendly smile. This was the smile of a predator who had cornered its prey. Honored representatives, the Chancellor began, his voice automatically translated into hundreds of languages simultaneously. We gather today to address what many of you have called the human problem. Several alien delegates made approving sounds from their seats. Mina's hands gripped the armrests of her chair. She had heard whispers about this meeting for weeks, but no one would tell her exactly what was being planned. The other ambassadors had stopped talking to her in the hallways. Even the friendly Altarian diplomat who usually shared coffee with her had started avoiding eye contact. Our intelligence networks have completed their assessment of Earth's military capabilities, the Chancellor continued. A holographic display appeared above the chamber, showing images of human soldiers, tanks, and fighter jets. As you can see, they still rely on primitive kinetic projectiles and chemical propulsion systems. Their most advanced weapons are nuclear devices that would barely scratch the shields of our scout ships. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Mina felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment and anger. She wanted to stand up and defend her species, but she knew that would only make things worse. These aliens had been studying humanity for decades, watching from a distance, cataloging their weapons and technology. And from their perspective, humans really did look helplessly primitive. The massive Kraylon delegate, who looked like a living mountain of rock and crystal, rumbled his agreement. The humans cannot even travel faster than light without our permission to use the jump gates. They are completely dependent on us for interstellar travel. The ethereal veil representatives, who appeared as shifting clouds of blue energy, flickered in what Mina had learned was their version of laughter. One of them spoke in a voice like wind chimes. Perhaps we should be impressed that they managed to reach space at all with such crude technology. More laughter filled the chamber. Mina felt completely alone, surrounded by hundreds of beings who saw her species as nothing more than amusing primitives. But she forced herself to stay calm and keep listening. She needed to understand exactly what they were planning. The situation has become untenable, the Chancellor announced, and the chamber fell silent. Humans have been granted provisional access to galactic civilization for 5 years now. In that time, they have shown themselves to be aggressive, unpredictable, and dangerously ambitious. They ask too many questions about our technology. They want to explore regions of space that are restricted. They simply cannot be trusted to develop responsibly. Mina's blood ran cold. This was worse than she had feared. They weren't just going to limit human access to alien technology or restrict their travel. They were planning something much more serious. Therefore, the Chancellor continued, the Inner Council has developed a solution. Humanity will be offered a choice. They can accept protective governance under Zephyrian oversight with carefully managed development and restricted access to galactic civilization. Or they can face complete quarantine from all interstellar contact until they prove themselves worthy, which our projections suggest will take approximately 500 years. The vote was swift and brutal. Not a single species voted against the proposal. Even the few aliens that Mina had thought were friendly to humans either voted yes or abstained. The message was clear. Humanity was alone in the galaxy, and no one was coming to help them. The human government has 72 hours to accept our generous offer of protection, the Chancellor announced with obvious satisfaction. If they refuse, All jump gate access will be permanently revoked, and any human vessels found outside their solar system will be destroyed. As the other representatives began filing out of the chamber, chatting excitedly about the decision, Mina sat, frozen in her seat. Everything her species had worked for, all their dreams of joining galactic civilization as equals, had just been crushed in a single vote. But then she remembered something that made her sit up straighter. These aliens thought they knew everything about humanity. They had been watching and studying and making assumptions, but there were things about her species that they had never bothered to look for. Things that had been carefully hidden for decades. Mina reached into her jacket and activated a concealed communication device that looked like nothing more than a simple pen. The signal it sent was encrypted and bounced through several satellites, before reaching its destination in the outer solar system. "Admiral Gino," she whispered into the device, her voice steady despite everything that had just happened. "It's time." Admiral Gino Park sat in the command chair of the Terran Command, a ship that officially didn't exist. The bridge around him was quiet, except for the soft hum of electronics and the occasional beep from monitoring stations. When Mina's encrypted message came through, he didn't even blink. He had been waiting for this moment for 23 years. The Admiral was a man who had seen too much war. His face carried scars from the border conflicts of 2387, and his left hand was cybernetic after losing the original in a reactor explosion. But his eyes were still sharp, and his mind was sharper. He had been chosen to lead humanity's most secret project, not because he was the most decorated officer, but because he understood what most people didn't. Sometimes you have to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. "Commander Hana," he said quietly to his second-in-command, a woman who had given up a promising career in civilian space engineering to join this classified program. "Signal all fleet commanders. Operation Starfall is now active. Full decloak. In 48 hours." Commander Hana Lim nodded and began entering commands into her console. Around the bridge, other officers started working with practiced efficiency. None of them seemed surprised or excited. They had been rehearsing this moment for years, running simulation after simulation. But now it was real. The Terran Command was positioned in the Kuiper Belt, that ring of icy rocks and debris that marked the edge of the solar system. To any alien sensors that might be watching, it looked like just another chunk of space ice drifting through the void. The adaptive camouflage system that surrounded the ship was humanity's first breakthrough in alien technology, reverse-engineered from a crashed scout ship found in Antarctica in 2341. But the Terran Command wasn't alone out here in the dark. Not even close. As Admiral Gino's orders spread through encrypted channels, space itself began to change. What had looked like empty void for decades suddenly started shimmering like heat waves rising from hot concrete. The camouflage fields that had hidden humanity's greatest secret were finally powering down. The first ship to reveal itself was the Indomitable, and it was a monster. Over a kilometer long and bristling with weapon systems that no human government had ever officially acknowledged building. Its hull was dark gray, almost black, designed to absorb sensor scans rather than reflect them. Along its sides, dozens of railgun turrets emerged from hidden compartments. These weren't the primitive kinetic weapons the aliens had seen in their intelligence reports. These were magnetic acceleration cannons that could punch holes through asteroid-sized targets. Captain Dae Hyun Cho stood on the Indomitable's bridge, watching his ship come alive. He had spent 12 years in command of this vessel, conducting training exercises in the outer system where no alien eyes could see. His crew of 800 had been selected from the best of Earth's military, and they had been preparing for this day since the ship's construction was completed. But the Indomitable was just the beginning. As more camouflage fields collapsed, the true scope of humanity's hidden fleet became clear. Sleek destroyers appeared like sharks emerging from dark water. The Valkyrie and Nemesis flanked their larger cousins, their hulls smooth and deadly. These ships were built for speed and precision strikes, carrying plasma torpedo launchers and particle beam arrays. Behind the destroyers came the carriers. The Yorktown and Enterprise were massive vessels, designed to launch swarms of fighter craft. But these weren't the atmospheric fighters the aliens had catalogued. These were space superiority craft, with fusion engines and smart missile systems. Each carrier held over 200 fighters, and there were 6 carriers spread throughout. The outer system. Captain Min Seo Yang commanded the Enterprise and watched with satisfaction as her flight decks came online. Her pilots had been training in deep space for years, learning to fight in zero gravity and vacuum conditions. They were ready for anything the galaxy could throw at them. But even with all these ships, the real prize was still hidden. The Prometheus was humanity's prototype battlecruiser, and it represented everything they had learned from studying alien technology. When the aliens had dismissed those crashed meteorites over the decades, they had no idea that human scientists were carefully studying every piece of wreckage. The Prometheus incorporated gravitational drive systems, energy shielding, and weapon technologies that were theoretically impossible for humans to possess. It was smaller than the Indomitable, but far more advanced. Admiral Sung Ho Kim commanded this ship from a bridge that looked more like alien technology than human engineering. As ships continued to decloak throughout the solar system, another secret was revealed. On the far side of Earth's moon, massive hangar doors were opening. What the aliens had believed were simple mining operations were actually the largest shipyards humanity had ever constructed. For 30 years, these facilities had been building ships in secret, using materials mined from asteroids and components manufactured in hidden factories. The lunar shipyards revealed dozens more vessels in various stages of completion. Some were ready for immediate deployment, while others were still being fitted with weapons and electronics, but all of them represented humanity's determination to never be caught defenseless again. Admiral Gino watched the tactical display as more and more friendly contacts appeared on his screens. 300 ships total, representing 25 years of secret construction and preparation. The aliens thought they knew everything about human military capability. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Commander Hanna announced. Admiral Gino allowed himself a small smile. "Signal the fleet. Welcome to the real war." Commander Velkos had been monitoring the human solar system for 3 months now, and it had been the most boring assignment of his military career. His surveillance fleet of 12 ships sat just outside the system's edge, watching for any sign that the primitive humans might try something stupid. But there was never anything to see except the occasional cargo ship moving between their planets. The Zephyrian officer was reviewing routine sensor logs when his console suddenly lit up like a festival display. Energy signatures were appearing all across his screens, readings so massive that his first instinct was to assume the sensors were malfunctioning. "Tactical Officer Nexus, run a full diagnostic on our sensor array," he ordered, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly in confusion. These readings can't be accurate. But Nexus, a young officer on his first deep space assignment, was staring at his own displays with growing alarm. "Sir, diagnostics show all systems functioning perfectly. I'm reading 23 large vessels decloaking throughout the system, and sir," his voice cracked slightly, "there's something massive moving from behind their moon." Commander Velkos felt his exoskeleton chill as he looked at the tactical display. Ships were appearing everywhere, materializing out of what had seemed like empty space. These weren't the small cargo vessels and primitive military craft they had been cataloging for years. These were warships, and they were big. "How is this possible?" he whispered, his mandibles clicking nervously. "Our intelligence reports showed no shipbuilding capability of this scale, no industrial infrastructure, no advanced technology, but the evidence was right there on his screens. A massive vessel over a kilometer long was revealing itself near the asteroid belt, its hull bristling with weapon emplacements that his computer couldn't even identify. Smaller ships flanked it, their sleek designs suggesting speed and firepower far beyond what humans should possess. The worst part was yet to come. From behind Earth's moon, something enormous was emerging. It moved slowly, deliberately, like a predator that knew it didn't need to hurry. The ship was unlike anything in Zephyrian databases, its hull incorporating design elements that looked disturbingly familiar. "Sir," Nexus reported, his voice barely steady, That large vessel is showing energy signatures consistent with gravitational drive systems. But that's impossible. Humans don't have that technology. Commander Velkos stared at the readings, his mind racing. Gravitational drives were advanced technology that only a handful of species in the galaxy possessed. The idea that humans had somehow developed them in secret was terrifying. But even worse was the growing suspicion of where they might have learned to build such systems. "Send an immediate priority message to High Command," he ordered. "Tell them we have a situation that requires immediate attention." Meanwhile, 300 light-years away, Ambassador Mina was walking back into the Galactic Council chambers, but this time she wasn't alone. Following her were 3 other humans that none of the alien representatives had ever seen before. They moved with military precision and carried briefcases that hummed with electronic equipment. The council members who had been chatting and laughing about humanity's ultimatum fell silent as Mina approached the central podium. There was something different about her now. The quiet diplomatic politeness was gone, replaced by a confidence that made several aliens shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Honored representatives," Mina began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. "The human government has carefully considered your generous offer of protective governance." She paused, letting the silence stretch. "We respectfully decline." A murmur of surprise rippled through the assembly. The Zephyrian Chancellor's eyes narrowed as he prepared to respond, but Mina continued before he could speak. "However, we would like to extend our own invitation. We believe it's time for a more equitable relationship between humanity and the galactic community." The humans with Mina opened their briefcases and began setting up holographic projectors. Within seconds, the air above the chamber filled with detailed 3-dimensional displays that made the Council's own technology look primitive by comparison. "What you're seeing," Mina explained, as shocked whispers filled the chamber, "is the result of over a century of careful observation and study. Every crashed probe you dismissed as a meteorite, every primitive sensor array we pointed at your ships, every diplomatic meeting where you thought we were taking notes about trade agreements. The holographic displays showed detailed schematics of Zephyrian warships, complete with weapon specifications and shield frequencies. But that was just the beginning. Technical readouts for Kralon defensive systems appeared, followed by the secret locations of Vale energy production facilities. "We've been watching you watch us," Mina continued, her voice growing stronger. "Every species represented in this chamber has had their military capabilities analyzed, their supply lines mapped, and their strategic weaknesses identified." The Altarian representative, who had always been friendly to humans, stood up in shock. "This is espionage on an unprecedented scale. How did you penetrate our security systems?" Mina smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. "The same way you've been penetrating ours for decades. The only difference is that we were better at it." New displays appeared showing alien surveillance stations monitoring Earth, communication intercepts from human colonies, and detailed files on human military capabilities. But alongside each alien intelligence report was a human counterintelligence file, showing how the information had been deliberately falsified. "Every weapons test you observed was carefully staged," Mina explained. "Every military exercise you monitored showed you exactly what we wanted you to see. While you were cataloging our primitive kinetic weapons, we were reverse engineering your technology from the wreckage of your own reconnaissance probes." The chamber erupted in chaos as representatives began shouting in dozens of languages. Some demanded to know how humans had acquired such detailed intelligence. Others were frantically trying to contact their home governments to warn them about the security breach. But Mina wasn't finished. The final holographic display showed real-time positions of alien fleets throughout the galaxy, along with detailed tactical assessments of their capabilities. "We know where every one of your ships is positioned," she announced over the noise. "We know your patrol routes, your supply schedules, and your emergency protocols. We've been preparing for this conversation for a very long time." The Zephyrian Chancellor finally found his voice. "This is an act of war. You have violated the sovereignty of every species in this chamber." "Have we?" Mina asked calmly. Or have we simply been doing what you've been doing to us, but more effectively? The only difference is that we're being honest about it." She gestured to the displays around them. "This is the new reality, honored representatives. Humanity is no longer the primitive species you thought we were. We never were. The question now is whether you want to deal with us as equals, or whether you want to find out just how much we've really learned from watching you all these years." The silence that followed was deafening. The transformation of Earth's solar system happened in less than 10 minutes, but for Commander Velkos watching, from his surveillance post, it felt like a lifetime. What had been empty space just moments before was now filled with the largest military fleet he had ever seen, outside of a galactic war. 300 human vessels hung in perfect formation throughout the system, their positioning so precise. It was clearly the result of years of planning and practice. The ships weren't scattered randomly like most fleets during emergency deployment. Instead, they formed overlapping defensive spheres that covered every possible approach to Earth, while simultaneously threatening any hostile forces that might try to enter the system. But it was the Prometheus that truly made Commander Velkos's blood run cold. The massive battlecruiser had emerged from behind Earth's moon like some ancient predator awakening from sleep. It was easily twice the size of his flagship and covered in weapon systems that his computer couldn't even identify. But the most terrifying thing about the ship wasn't its size or firepower. It was moving without any visible propulsion. The Prometheus glided through space as smoothly as a fish swimming through water, its hull surrounded by a faint distortion that bent light around it like a heat mirage. Commander Velkos had seen gravitational drive systems before, but only on the most advanced ships in the galaxy. The technology required understanding of physics that most species took centuries to develop. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, his voice shaking, "that battle cruiser alone outmasses our entire squadron, and I'm reading energy signatures that suggest it's only operating at minimal power." The implications hit Commander Velkos like a physical blow. If the humans had gravitational drives, if they had built ships of this size in secret, then everything the Galactic Council believed about Earth's capabilities was completely wrong. They weren't dealing with a primitive species that needed protection. They were dealing with a military power that had been hiding in plain sight for decades. His communication console chirped with an incoming transmission on all frequencies. The voice that came through was calm, professional, and absolutely terrifying in its confidence. "Attention Zephyrian Surveillance Fleet. This is Admiral Gino Park of the Terran Defense Force. You are operating military vessels within the sovereign territory of the Sol system without permission. You have 30 minutes to withdraw beyond the heliopause. Any vessels remaining after that deadline will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly." Commander Velkos looked at his tactical display and felt his exoskeleton begin to sweat. His 12 ships were completely surrounded. Human destroyers had somehow moved into position around his fleet without being detected, their sleek hulls now visible as they dropped their camouflage systems. Each one was smaller than his ships, but they moved with a predatory grace that suggested they were built for speed and precision strikes. "Sir, what are your orders?" his second-in-command asked. Commander Velkos stared at the display for a long moment. He had spent his entire career in the Zephyrian military, rising through the ranks by following orders and showing courage in battle. But this wasn't a battle he could win. This wasn't even a battle he could survive. "Signal the fleet," he said, quietly. "We're withdrawing immediately." "Sir, shouldn't we contact High Command first, get authorization?" "Look at your screens," Commander Velkos snapped. "We're outnumbered 25 to 1 by ships we can't match. High Command can court-martial me later if they want, but I'm not going to get my crews killed for pride." The retreat of the Zephyrian surveillance fleet was not dignified. The 12 alien ships accelerated away from the solar system as quickly as their engines could manage, broadcasting surrender frequencies to make sure the human ships knew they weren't looking for a fight. It was the kind of hasty withdrawal that military historians would write about for generations. But Commander Velkos didn't care about his reputation. He cared about the fact that every government in the galaxy needed to know what humanity was really capable of. As his ships fled toward the nearest jump point, he composed a priority message that would change galactic politics forever. Back in the council chambers, Ambassador Mina was just getting started with her revelations. The holographic displays around her shifted to show a new set of images that made several alien representatives gasp in shock. The Terran Defense Force you're seeing in our solar system represents only our home fleet, she announced calmly. What you may find more interesting is this. The displays now showed star maps covering hundreds of light years around Earth. But these weren't exploration charts or trade routes. These were military positioning maps showing human assets throughout the galaxy. For the past 30 years, our cargo ships and mining vessels have been establishing supply depots and monitoring stations near every major population center in known space, Mina explained. What you thought were simple trade missions were actually the largest intelligence and logistics operation in galactic history. The Kraylan representative, whose rocky features had turned an alarming shade of purple, rumbled in disbelief. Impossible. We monitor all shipping in our territory. We would have detected military installations. Would you? Mina asked with a smile. The same way you detected our battle fleet hiding in our own solar system. New images appeared showing what looked like ordinary asteroid mining operations, civilian research stations and commercial refueling depots. But as the displays zoomed in, the true nature of these installations became clear. Hidden weapon emplacements, sensor arrays powerful, enough to monitor fleet movements, and storage facilities that could supply military operations for months. The installation you've been buying fuel from for the past 5 years. Mina pointed to a display showing a Kraylan space station. It's been monitored by human intelligence operatives the entire time. That research station studying cosmic radiation near your homeworld? Our people have been tracking your military communications from there for 3 years. The chamber fell completely silent as the full scope of humanity's deception became clear. Every major species in the galaxy had human assets positioned near their most critical infrastructure. Supply lines, communication networks, military bases, all of it had been watched and studied by a species they had dismissed as primitive. We've been 3 steps ahead of you from the beginning, Mina continued. Every threat assessment you made about human capabilities was based on information we wanted you to have. Every strategic decision your governments made was influenced by intelligence we carefully leaked to you. The Altarian representative stood up, his crystalline features flickering with confused colors. Why? Why go to such elaborate lengths to deceive us? Because we learned something important from our history, Mina replied. When a more advanced civilization encounters a less advanced one, it rarely ends well for the less advanced species. We decided that if we were going to join galactic civilization, we were going to do it on our own terms. She gestured to the tactical displays still showing the human fleet in Sol system. The ships you're seeing aren't just a defensive force, they're a statement. Humanity is ready to take its place as an equal partner in galactic affairs, but we're also ready to defend ourselves if anyone tries to force us into a subordinate role. The message was crystal clear. The age of treating humanity as a junior partner was over. The galaxy had a new major power, and it had been hiding in plain sight all along. The Galactic Council chamber had descended into complete pandemonium. Representatives were shouting in dozens of languages, their translation devices struggling to keep up with the rapid-fire arguments echoing off the curved walls. Some aliens were demanding immediate military action against humanity, while others were frantically trying to contact their home governments to assess the damage to their own security. The Zephyrian Chancellor's 4 eyes were blazing with fury. As he pointed an accusatory claw at Ambassador Mina, "This is an act of unprecedented aggression. You have violated every treaty, every agreement, every foundation of civilized interaction between species." But Mina remained completely calm in the center of the storm. She methodically packed her holographic projectors back into their cases, her movements deliberate and unhurried. When she finally looked up at the Chancellor, her expression was that of someone who held all the cards and knew it. "Violated treaties?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Which treaties would those be? The ones where you promised to treat humanity as equals while secretly planning to put us under your control? Or perhaps you're referring to the agreements about non-interference that you've been breaking for decades while spying on our civilization?" The chamber fell momentarily silent as the truth of her words sank in. Every species present had been conducting surveillance on humanity, gathering intelligence, and making plans without human knowledge or consent. The only difference was that humans had been better at the game than anyone realized. The days of treating Earth as your junior partner are over, Mina continued, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. Humanity formally withdraws from probationary status, effective immediately. We will be establishing full diplomatic embassies on every major world within the month. I trust you'll prepare appropriate accommodations. The Kraylon representative, his massive rocky frame trembling with indignation, rumbled a response. You cannot simply declare yourself equal to civilizations that have existed for millennia. Respect must be earned. Respect? Mina laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. You mean the kind of respect you showed when you voted to put us under alien control without even consulting us? The kind of respect that involves 63 different species conducting unauthorized surveillance of our home world? As she spoke, the air behind her began to shimmer. A holographic projection system built into the chamber's ceiling activated, displaying a three-dimensional image that made every alien present gasp in shock. Admiral Gino appeared as if he were standing right there in the chamber, his scarred face stern and commanding. "Greetings, representatives of the Galactic Council," the Admiral said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who commanded hundreds of warships. "I am Admiral Gino Park of the Terran Defense Force. I'm speaking to you from the bridge of our flagship, currently positioned in Earth's solar system, along with our entire home defense fleet." Behind the Admiral's hologram, the main display showed real-time images of the human fleet. 300 ships hung in perfect formation around Earth, their weapons powered but not actively targeting anything. It was a demonstration of strength that was impossible to ignore. The Terran Defense Force extends an invitation to all peaceful species for mutual cooperation and trade, Admiral Gino continued. Humanity has no desire for conquest or domination. We simply want to take our rightful place as equals in galactic civilization. His expression hardened slightly as he continued. However, let me be absolutely clear about one thing. Any attempt to subjugate, control, or quarantine humanity will be met with immediate and overwhelming force. We have prepared for this possibility for decades, and we are ready. The threat hung in the air like a sword suspended over the chamber. Every alien representative understood exactly what the Admiral was saying. Humanity wasn't just asking for equality, they were demanding it, backed by military force that none of them had suspected existed. The Veil representative, a shimmering cloud of energy that rarely spoke in council sessions, flickered with what appeared to be amusement. "Fascinating," it said in its wind chime voice. "In all our centuries of observation, we have never encountered a species that managed to reverse engineer our technology so completely while appearing to remain primitive." "That's because you weren't looking in the right places," Mina replied. "While you were monitoring our obvious military installations and public research facilities, we were building our real capabilities in locations you never thought to examine. Every mining operation in our asteroid belt, every research station in our outer system, every cargo ship that visited your space. All of it was part of a larger plan." Admiral Gino's hologram nodded approvingly. Ambassador Kim speaks. "The truth. For 30 years, humanity has been playing a very long game. We knew that eventually this moment would come, when the galaxy would try to force us into submission. We decided long ago that when that day arrived, we would be ready." The Admiral's image shifted to show tactical displays of human assets throughout the galaxy. Supply depots disguised as commercial facilities, monitoring stations hidden in plain sight, and defensive positions that could support extended military operations far from Earth. "Every major trade route in this sector is now monitored by human intelligence assets," he explained. "Every critical infrastructure point near your home worlds has been surveyed and assessed. We know your capabilities, your weaknesses, and your strategic vulnerabilities better than you know them yourselves." The scope of humanity's deception was staggering. For 3 decades, while the aliens had been watching and studying Earth, humans had been watching and studying them right back. The difference was that humans had been better at hiding their activities. The age of human subservience ends today, Admiral Gino declared, his voice echoing through the silent chamber. We offer partnership to those who want it, and we guarantee destruction to anyone who threatens us. The choice is yours. As the Admiral's hologram faded, Mina picked up her briefcase and walked toward the chamber's exit. She paused at the massive doors and turned back to address the stunned assembly one final time. "Oh, and Chancellor," she said, looking directly at the Zephyrian leader. "That surveillance fleet you had watching our solar system? Admiral Gino's ships are currently escorting them to the edge of our territory. I'm sure Commander Velkos will have some interesting reports to file when he gets home." The implication was clear. Not only had humanity revealed their hidden fleet, but they had also demonstrated their willingness to use it. The Zephyrian surveillance operation, which had been considered undetectable, had been identified and neutralized without a single shot being fired. As Mina walked out of the chamber, leaving behind centuries of galactic tradition and power structures, one thing was absolutely certain: the galaxy would never be the same again. Humanity had announced their arrival as a major power in the most dramatic way possible, and there was no going back. The secret had been elegantly simple. While the aliens watched the skies above Earth, humanity had been quietly building their future among the stars, and that future had just begun.